Well, talking with me is Stu Peters today. We're looking back one section on the first year, then we'll look forward to the next year. But it's quite surreal because we've obviously known each other for a long time. You were on the radio for many years going, if I was the dictator, I would do this. And you put your money where your mouth is, I suppose. I mean, was that a big decision to make, to give up the radio to take your chances?
I think that my days on the radio were coming to a natural end anyway. Oh. I'd been doing it for 20 years, and I'd been sort of shuffled off into the graveyard shift of the midnight show, which was fine, and I had a nice audience. But I don't know. I think that younger, brighter things are required nowadays in radio, and I think that the days of we old fellas are pretty much gone. And I just look at Radio 2 for examples of that.
I mean, you had a very big following, with your opinions. You were opinionated on the radio, which got you into trouble, but we won't go there today.
Well, no, I mean, there are two ways of looking at it, and I worked with colleagues for all those 20 years, excuse me, many of whom said that if you're doing a phone-in programme or whatever, you're supposed to be impartial. And I always thought that was a very false construct, and I don't believe it. And people would say, you should be like Jeremy Paxman, he's completely impartial. Not for a second. I mean, the minute that Jeremy Paxman opens his mouth, you know whether or not he likes the person that he's interviewing and agrees with them or not. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is a greater lie than me going out there and saying, here's this issue, here's what I think about it, what do you think about it? And I don't think there's anything wrong, because we've all got opinions, and to try and pretend that somebody is impartial on everything it's just a false construct.
Did this all help you, do you think, get in? You're a known name and all that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, yeah. I mean, somebody posted on social media a while ago, you wouldn't have got in if you'd have not been on the radio. No, you're probably quite right. Because people who get elected are either people who have been up through the local commissioners or whatever and built up a little bit of a name for themselves, or it's people who've done the sort of stuff that we've done, or whatever. So, I think that being a bit of a known face and a known voice was definitely instrumental in getting in. And remember, I mean, I came second, and I only got half the votes of Jane Poole Wilson. And she'd not been on the radio, but she had been a member of LegCo, so she'd built up a bit of a reputation as being a good person.
So did you pound all those doors and get around?
Did.
I
did, yeah. I actually lost weight, I think. Everybody said I'd lose a stone, and I think I lost about a pound, but it was hard work, and I don't like walking, and it was very hot.
But people had to buy into, I mean, you had had very definite points of view.
When I went out knocking on doors, I was a little bit nervous about it, because I thought, probably half the people who listen to me enjoy what I do, and half the people that listen to me hate what I do. Just looking at social media, I always thought that I was a fairly sort of Marmite person, and so I expect I'll get a lot of grief on the doorstep from people saying that I talk a load of nonsense and all the rest of it. And actually, people were very kind. People were very nice. So I did get a bit of a beasting at a couple of houses, but generally speaking, people were really nice. And people said, we like the idea that you speak up for the majority of us who daren't say some of the things that you've said on the radio. And I think that that's a sad reflection on society these days, that people are so worried about this cancel culture and about recriminations and about being bullied on Facebook or on social media or whatever, that people don't say the things that they actually feel. So, hopefully I was able to be that voice for a few people.
And have you been able to translate that into action?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, somebody else asked me the other day on Facebook, I think, so what have you done in your first year? And I don't know that you can actually quantify it like that. I went into politics having been on your side of it for the best part of 20 years. So I think I knew what was involved in it. It is different once you're inside the tent, I suppose, and you do have to learn an awful lot about the procedures and the protocols and all the rest of it. So, there is an amount of finding your feet in there. And there are people who've been doing it a lot longer than I have, who have got fantastic memories, which I've not, I'm first to admit. If you talk to Chris Thomas about something, he will remember that there was a parliamentary committee that looked at something in 2013, and he can quote the chapter and verse of it. So the really good parliamentarians have got very long memories and can remember all that kind of thing. And I'm still trying to get up to speed with it from a standing start kind of thing.
Expectations. I mean, I say you see it from the outside. You talk to all these politicians, then suddenly you're in there. And, everyone always says it's not quite what it seemed. And you have the same view on that one. Trying to do things can be tricky, or
it's like wading through treacle.
Yeah, that's what most people say.
And I think a lot of people would say that. When you stand in for election, you are full of hope that you can get in there and really make a difference. And I don't know that any single member possibly can. And I hope that I managed expectations when I was talking to people about saying I'm just one of 24, so don't expect me to change the world. I'm not being elected as benevolent dictator for life, which would be nice. So I've got to do things, and I've got to try and take the other 24 along with me. Part of the problem, I suppose, about being outspoken is that there are certain things that most of the other 24 believe in that I really don't. I mean, we often sort of butt heads on things like climate change, for example. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, especially in 2022, that we've got a £42 million budget for climate change in the island. I just think I think it's reprehensible, to be honest. The trouble is that I actually admire the people who are doing the best as far as climate change is concerned. Everybody is very genuine about the whole thing, and they genuinely believe that the world's going to set fire to itself unless we spend a whole lot of money and all buy electric cars, and I just don't believe that. So I do tend to be a bit of a lone voice on certain things. But I think that's the beauty of the democratic system that we've got, that people like me can have a say, and people can listen to it and make their own minds up. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just trying to say, that there are different ways of looking at this problem.
You spent this first year mostly out of anything. I mean, you said that from the beginning you weren't going to get involved in.
I said right from the beginning.
Right?
Yeah, I said right from the beginning that I wasn't looking for a departmental position, or certainly a ministership if that came up, for at least 12 months, because I wanted to learn the job really for 12 months. And also I wanted to be an effective backbencher and not limited by any sort of a corporate responsibility. So I've done that. I mean, and then of course, so you do that and people say, oh, that's good, but that means that you're lazy because you're not doing anything. So, to prove that I'm not, I'm a member of the Constitutional Legal Affairs and Justice Committee. I'm Deputy Chairman of the Office of Fair Trading, and I've just taken over the chair of the Post Office, Isle of Man Post Office.
I mean, that's just after the year almost. So is that what was?
Well, no. I mean, they are not effectively departmental positions.
True, but it's an uplift, isn't it? The post office.
The post office, I think there is a small increase in the stipend. Yeah, I mean that's not why I did it, and it isn't something that I sought. I was asked if I'd do it, and I said yeah, sure. So
you're in there, and you're keeping fairly quiet, I think, and that's why the feeling was that you were going to go in there and be a bit of a, I don't know, Peter Karen or something. Be a bit more of a rebel.
Well.
You talked, didn't you, on that when you were on the radio?
Well, I think that I do. I'd prefer to think that when I stand up in Keys or Tynwald, it's because I've got something to say, and not because I want to try and secure votes for 2026. And I do feel that there's an amount of playing to the gallery. And a couple of members, all of whom I got on really well with, have said, I thought you might talk about that. And it's like, well, yeah, but we had 16 speeches that all said the same thing about that topic. Everybody wringing their hands about this problem, whichever it is that we've got, and saying how it's going to affect their constituents and, how we've got to remember the ordinary people. And that's all fine, but it doesn't really add anything, except it allows them to be seen to be saying the right things. So I'd rather just not say anything at times like that. If somebody's made a point already, there's no point in me repeating it.
And how much you're listening to your constituents? Because you've got your views, and if they don't agree with you, are they not part of your plan?
I am completely open to my constituents, and they voted me in to do a job knowing my stance on most things. Now, there are different things that then come up during the course of the year where constituents have got issues. and they approached me about it. I mean, I've been approached recently about an issue in Braddon, and people almost demanding that I take their position on something. And it's not that simple. I'll look at each issue as it comes up, and I'll decide whether or not it's something that I can support or whether or not I need to oppose. And I'll talk to them, but because I've been elected by people doesn't mean that necessarily I've got to vote the way of the outspoken minority on things.
Right. Well, in the second part, we'll be looking forward to the next year with Stu Peters, MHK for Middle.